Hey everybody, welcome to another inspiring episode of Founders Gyan. This is episode 31, and in case you're tuning in for the first time, thank you. Each week we feature the inspiring story of a startup and the founder behind it. And today's guest is Mr. Amit Bagaria, the CEO and co-founder of MyVote.Today. This is a platform and an app to help you reclaim democracy by voting on things that matter. We'll talk more about it in the show. Do check out the show notes over at www.foundersgyan.com/EP31 and the top listened podcasts on the site at foundersgyan.com/top. Alright, let's get on with the show, shall we? Amit Bagaria, welcome to the show. Great to meet you and I'm super excited to speak to you today. Amit is the founder of MyVote.Today, a mobile app that gives you a say in matters that concern and concerns that matter. You can bring issues relating to your locality or city to their attention by posting a topic. You can also vote once daily on issues concerning your locality, city, state or country. A serial entrepreneur, Amit is also the general managing partner at Germinators, a firm focused on investing in tech startups in India, and also the chairman of ASIPAC, one of India's most respected real estate consultants. He has also been the CEO, founder of several different companies, as well as is a leading author and guest speaker, with his work being featured in more than 300 articles in India, US, France, Brazil and Hong Kong. There's simply not enough time to go over all his achievements, so we'll keep it very short. Amit, great to meet you and thanks a lot for taking time out of your busy schedule to share your knowledge, wisdom and time with our listeners. Thank you for agreeing to be on the show.
Sure.
So Amit, can you fill in the blanks from the intro about your journey before MyVote.Today?
Well, so I had the unique opportunity that I guess a very small percentage of people get of being educated abroad in a subject that not too many people from India, I would say a very, very small minority from India study, and that was communications. Way back in 1986-87. This was before we had, private television networks communications in those days was Doordarshan or whatever. So through being in that and the kind of subjects that I studied, I got a lot of exposure to all kinds of things that people normally don't get an exposure to, because normally people would go from India to study in engineering or computer science or something where it's a very closed world. Communications is probably the most open world there is, right? I mean, because everything needs a communication. A doctor needs to communicate with patients, a lawyer needs to communicate with not only his client but also the judge. A sports person needs to communicate with the media, or a celebrity, an actor needs to communicate, otherwise they can't act or they can't talk to their fans, etc. So after coming back, it was I had to come back because my family was here. They wanted me. I'm the eldest son. So I was looking at what can we do which has not been done before. How can we change things? So I've tried several different things in my life. So I've had a 27-year work career, and in 27 years I've done 9 or 10 different things. Luckily, again, with God's grace, most of them have been successful. I've had two failures, and I think failures teach you much more than what successes teach you. But I guess more important is to talk about my vote today.
Right. So we'll just come to that. So explain to us in detail the concept of my vote, right? And also, how did you come up with this idea in the first place?
So the idea came up because what I realized is so part of what I had studied is in communications is journalism, and in journalism ethics is very important. And what I realized is that suddenly in the last few years, the television-based, the media channels, the news channels have become much more powerful in terms of being able to influence people than newspapers. And the young generation actually, so I grew up in a generation where we had to read the newspaper every day, otherwise, day wouldn't begin. But I guess going forward, today, the 30-year-olds or 35-year-olds, they grew up watching television news. And the generation that's growing up now is getting their news from Twitter and Facebook and Tumblr and whatever other digital media there is out there. So then I said, okay, let me also convert, because I like to be up with the times. So I said, let me also convert and let me start reading this digital media thing. So I started following a lot of news trends on digital media, and I realized over a period of time that there was trash being put out there which was completely biased. So for example, I'll give you an example as recent as yesterday or day before yesterday, that the Z News, the Z News conglomerate bought some merchandising company. They bought an 80% stake in a merchandising company earlier owned by India Today Group. So it's nothing. This merchandising company is perhaps less than 0.5% of the revenue of India Today Group. And why ZTV bought it, God only knows. But people spun this as ZTV picks up 80% stake in India Today and Rajdeep Sardesai's act. So what happens today is this youngster doesn't know, right? Because people think Wikipedia is like the Bible or the Gita or the Quran. People don't know that you and I can create a Wikipedia page about Barack Obama. I mean, there is no I mean, there is a sort of curation, but it's not fully curated. Nothing on Twitter is curated. Nothing on Facebook is curated. So anyone can put in any trash. So people will put that Rahul Gandhi's real name is Raul Castro or Raul Vinci, and he's a British citizen or he's whatever, and then how do you know whether to believe it or not to believe it? And people are getting influenced by this. So this happened about 3 years ago or 4 years ago, that a friend of mine was visiting from Delhi, and we were just having dinner, and the political uprising of Narendra Modi had started, and he started discussing that, do you think this man has the chance, will he win the South? Because he will win the North, but will he become the Prime Minister? And we were talking about this. My son was getting bored, and he said, why are you even talking about this murderer? So I said, my friend asked him, he says, why are you calling him a murderer? He says, oh, you don't know? Every time a Muslim child is born in Gujarat, Narendra Modi personally goes there with his police and they pull the hands and legs of the child. So that, they just break the child into pieces so that no Muslim child can be born there. So he's a murderer. So I said, wait a minute, who told you this? My school teacher. So I said, that's very interesting. So I took an appointment with the principal and I went and lodged a complaint. I said, is this, and I don't want to name the school, but it's a pretty, very well known, one of the top ranked schools in the country. So the principal was obviously very apologetic and had a word with the teacher and said, their political leanings should not be taught to the class. But if that incident had not happened, my son today, who's turning 21 in 2 months, would have grown up thinking that Narendra Modi goes and puddles the arms and legs of a newborn Muslim baby, right? So the simple idea of My Vote today is that you put issues out there, and like we say in our mission statement, matters that concern and concerns that matter, right? So there may be a matter which may concern you. It may be in your neighborhood, it may be in your city, it may be in your state, it may be a national topic. Or you're concerned about something and your concern matters to other people, or it matters to the government, to the authorities, to the military, to whoever, right? So any concern that matters, any matter that concerns, take it up, bring up the issue and put out information. So so we are only a mobile app on Android and iOS. And we put 4 bullet points. We put restricted 1000 characters. So within 1000 characters, we are educating the person on that particular subject. So take, for example, the poll that we are doing today. It was suggested by a user. So the user can go and post a topic, and the user suggested to know, why is it that a soldier serving in Siachen Glacier is getting paid less than a police inspector in Hyderabad. So we did our research on the subject and we realized, yes, this is true. This is absolutely true that a soldier in Siachen is getting less money than a police inspector in Hyderabad or in Guwahati. So we are running a poll on it in which we've given the salaries of the people and we've asked the people, how much should a Siachen soldier get? Should he get more than that police inspector? Should he get more than the Delhi MLA who makes 10 times more money, etc.? So you see the information and then you vote. Now once you vote, and let's say that at the end of this poll, which closes at 8 o'clock today, 80% of people say that yes, this soldier should make more money than the police inspector. Then we will then send out that poll result to the Defense Ministry, the Finance Ministry, the PMO, etc. and say, look, people of India feel that the Siachen soldier should be paid more. Right? So, who's lobbying on their behalf? So, today, Amitabh Bachchan fans can lobby on behalf of Amitabh Bachchan, Sonia Gandhi's followers can lobby on her behalf, Ratan Tata's employees can lobby on his behalf. But who's there to lobby for the common man? So this becomes a platform for reclaiming democracy. What is democracy? Why is it that the government takes all decisions? Because if the government has to take all decisions, then we should be like China. Because China, communist countries or autocracies are the one where government takes all the decisions. Otherwise you have a kingdom. So, you have a Saudi Arabia or you have a, UAE where the king or the sultan takes all the decisions. In a democracy, it's supposed to be people who take all the decisions. So, if you take, for example, let's talk about the largest, we are the largest democracy in the world. Let's talk about the oldest democracy in the world, which is the United States of America. In the United States of America, in Silicon Valley itself, they have voting once a year on public issues. So in San Jose, they had a voting on whether Uber should be banned because there was a big accident where a lady passenger in Uber had lost both her legs, and this became a big court case. And then people said, Uber is not qualifying their drivers. All kinds of people are being hired, etc., etc. So they had a voting. Fortunately for Uber, they won that case. Similarly, in the city of San Francisco, they voted whether Airbnb should be banned or not, because these two Russian prostitution rackets, they took apartments through Airbnb inside residential colonies where there were kids, and they were running prostitution rackets in these colonies, and people raised a whole lot of hue and cry, and the mayor got involved, and they said he's going to lose the next election because of this, and all these things were happening, and they said, okay, let's put it up for polling. And Airbnb won with a very narrow margin, right? So they have to be very careful, because if they have a polling on this subject again, after 2 years, they could actually be voted out of their headquarters. So in France, if somebody wants to build a hospital or a shopping mall, they have a polling in that locality, whether that shopping mall is needed or not, whether a hospital is needed or not, because it's going to cause additional traffic problems or, So everything is decided by we the people, right? So I'm saying the constitution, it's about we the people. But here we've got it all wrong. We threw out the British, right? And then we brought in, I'm sure as an Indian, who we brought in and what we brought in, right? We threw out British when we brought in, we said, we are gulam of the British. So now we want to be independent, but then we became gulam of our own, citizens. So it's 2015, it's 2016. Let's, get out of this gulami and let's reclaim democracy.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks for that long explanation. I think that clearly gives a very nice picture of what your app does. So for our budding founders listening out there, so can you give us some tips on how to come up with a good idea? So now this is obviously a great idea. You have had organic growth. There are tons of people voting every day. So what's the secret sauce behind coming up with a good idea?
I think in my mind, when somebody asked me earlier also once that who in your mind is the best startup that you've seen and who's the best founder, and I say the best startup that I have seen when I was a child, and the best founder was Mother Teresa, and the startup was called Missionaries of Charity. And so they say, why? I mean, nobody calls it a startup. I said, well, when she died, more people came to her funeral than Princess Diana's. So Mother Teresa has had the world's largest funeral. And why was it? Obviously because she did something good. So if the idea is all about, I'm going to write so many million lines of code and I'm going to do this and I'm going to use, this software and this algorithm and that's how I'm going to solve the world's problem, believe me, there's 9 million people trying to do that, or maybe 99 million people trying to do that. But if the idea is about doing good and therefore making people happier, you will, money will become less important over a period of time. You'll just feel so good about what you're doing that valuation, in my mind, valuation is how many people attend your funeral and not how much money you have in your bank account.
Okay, brilliant. So, in simple terms, you're saying try to do something good with your startup. I mean, try to do something good.
Yeah. So there is so much opportunity in India. There's so much opportunity that if you see today the rural-urban divide in India, I mean, even if you see the north-south divide, I have educated friends in Delhi, very, very highly educated. These guys are MBAs from IIMs, etc., who actually think that we people in South India wear lungi, right? I mean, they're like, how many people in Bangalore wear pant, right? I'm saying in today's world, in 2016, people are asking how many people in Bangalore or Chennai wear a pant, right? And they're like, oh, do you also eat your sambar with, dripping down your arm or whatever? Do you use spoons in South India? Because they've never been to South India in their life. Similarly, there are so many people in South India who say, okay, Hindians think like this. Who's a Hindian is a Hindi-speaking Indian. I mean, if we are one country, right, I'm sure there are hundreds of opportunities out there for entrepreneurs thinking of starting something where, make us one country. I mean, I don't know, through videos, through whatever, right? I mean, I remember when I was in college, there was this program on CBS TV called Sunday Morning with Charles Kuralt. And what Charles Kuralt used to do is he used to go to small towns and look for heroes, right? And this whole program was not about the Shah Rukh Khan or the Sachin Tendulkar being the hero, but it was about somebody in a small town doing something great, and it was, on prime time television. Right. So, hey, that's a startup idea.
Right. Brilliant. If you like this show, do follow us on Facebook and Twitter. The link is www.facebook.com/foundersgyan and twitter.com/foundersgyan. Both these provide you daily tips and articles as well as resources to help and inspire your startup. There are multiple tips per day. Some examples of these tips would be articles on the latest startups, growth hacking tips, how do you build team for startups, how to get funding, etc. So don't forget facebook.com/foundersgyan and twitter.com/foundersgyan. Now, once, let's say, a person has a good idea in mind, so maybe it's solving a problem, maybe it's doing something good, what does the person need to do in order to make it into a reality? So do you build a minimum viable product? Do you do market research? What in your mind is kind of the essential steps to turn the idea into a reality?
So the second person or the third person will never ever understand the idea, because it's the person who understands the idea. They are the ones who come up with it. So there's no point in just taking the idea in words and going and doing market research with it. And again, what is the definition of a minimum viable product? I mean, yes, you have to build something and you have to test it. That's the best way. And I would say go one step at a time. So I think even in the case of MyVote.Today, we did testing first with internally 4 people, then we spread it to 10 people, then we spread it to 20, then we spread it to 50 before launching in the public. We had already debugged it so much that today, we are happy we have a 4.8 rating on App Store because, we went one step at a time. We didn't try to go conquer the world on day one, right? So people look at all this story of, Flipkart or, Oyo rooms and say, wow, look, how big you can become at one point in time. Look, please, that's 1 out of a million ideas, right? I mean, so I would advise people strongly to read a book by Peter Thiel, 0 to 1. And I think anybody thinking of a startup should make that their Bible.
Okay, brilliant. Now, let's talk something personal. We all hear about founders sacrificing family time to make their ventures a success. Can you tell us a bit more about your own family and how you manage to balance business and family?
Yeah, well, so this is a startup that I've done after 15 years. I mean, after 14 years. And in the last 14 years, I haven't been able to do much because my kids were growing up. But now both of them are in college. So I had a lot more free time on my hand. I mean, in the sense that, weekend commitments, etc., etc., there was nobody that you had to commit to. So, obviously apart from spouse, but, I guess when you're married for 27 years, then you come to a certain understanding of,
Right.
so work-life balance is very important. It's not good to take any to the extreme. In my opinion, and this is a very personal opinion, I would say go for the 9-1 formula. Work 9 days at a stretch, take that 1 day break where you just switch off everything, right? And it works very well because I guess the Western world does, like, if you see France, they do the 4-3 formula. They work 4 days and take 3 days of rest. And that's the reason why their economies are tumbling. I mean, the people say Europe this, Europe that. I think Europe has tumbled because they work 4 days a week. Narendra Modi works 365 days a year. I'm not saying all of us have that energy, but I've seen it with my own life that you can go 9 days at a row and then you take the 10th day off.
Right. Okay. Great. And I think it becomes much easier, right, if you enjoy what you're doing. I mean, if you're doing the startup not for money, but because you're genuinely interested in solving something, I'm guessing working 9 days at a stretch should not be that difficult.
Absolutely. And if you're not passionate about what you're doing, don't do it.
Right.
I mean, it's as simple as that.
Okay.
If you don't, Steve Jobs couldn't have built, what he did if he didn't like what he was doing. Bill Gates couldn't have built what he's built if he didn't like what he was doing. So you have to enjoy what you're doing. You have to enjoy your work. If you're not enjoying your work, go talk to a mirror, talk to your best friend, talk to your school or college teacher, professor, and say, what am I doing wrong?
Okay, excellent. Now, is there a morning or a daily ritual that you follow? Can you share it with myself and our listeners? It could be something personal, like maybe working out every day, or maybe a professional one, like having a meeting first thing in the morning or having a call first thing in the morning.
So I'm absolutely a non-ritual person. I follow no rituals. I have my life is dynamic. It changes every day.
Okay, excellent. Okay, now let's talk about your co-founders. You have 2 co-founders, so tell me a bit more about them and how did you meet them, and also how can would-be founders get a co-founder?
So in my view, you should know your co-founder. It cannot be a stranger. It could be your classmate. It could be a friend. It could be a family. So my co-founders, my first co-founder, BG Mahesh, is one of the first founders in the Indian internet ecosystem. Way back in 1999, he had IndiaInfo.com, which got funded by Morgan Stanley. In those days, got valuation of some $15 million. I know him because he lives down the road. I mean, our wives go for an evening walk together. So we've known each other for 7-8 years, and he understands the tech space. I don't understand the tech space, and I guess I had to have, because this is a tech startup, I had to have a tech co-founder, and he was the closest person that I can think of, and he became very interested in the idea, and that's how he came on board. And the third founder is actually related to me. So he's a youngster. He was working in one of these big 5 consulting firms, and he was getting very frustrated that nobody listens to him, because when you work in a company with 17,000 people, obviously they're not listening to everybody. So he had that entrepreneurial spirit, and he used to always complain whenever he used to talk that I want to do something on my own. So I said, why don't you come and look at this? And he loved the opportunity and the idea, and so that's how he came on board.
Okay, brilliant. And how essential do you think it is to have a co-founder? Do you think it's...
It's very essential. I don't think anybody can do anything alone. So I don't know how many people are aware that even when Microsoft was started, it was not started by one person. Although it's one person who became famous, and that's Bill Gates, but Paul Allen had an equal role to play in Microsoft. Similarly, when Facebook was started, it was not only Mark Zuckerberg, but Sean Parker had a big role, if you all have seen the movie Social Network. So minimum of 2, ideally 3, but a minimum of 2. One person alone, hats off to you if one person alone can pull it off.
Okay, excellent. Now, can you tell us something about yourself that is not commonly known?
One of the things that people find weird about me, people who are close to me, is that I saw the Eiffel Tower on my 9th trip to Paris. I saw the Statue of Liberty on my 11th trip to New York. So I'm a social tourist. When I go to a new place, I like to see how the local population eats, drinks, sleeps, parties. whatever. I don't like to go see historical monuments, which you can see on a video or a film, or just Google the images, etc. I like to study how human beings function, and the only way to study it is by mixing with them, and that gives me deep insights into consumer behavior.
Okay, excellent. Now, what's the best advice somebody has given you, or alternatively best advice you have heard and tried to follow?
Well, the best advice not necessarily someone has given me, but one of the inspirations has been advice that Aditya Vikram Birla gave to his son Kumar Mangalam on his deathbed when he was dying of cancer. He just told his son, be brave.
Okay, excellent. Now, let's talk about inspiring listeners. Startups come with a lot of pressure, so can you give us some tips on how we can handle pressure when things aren't going well?
When things aren't going well, they can only get better.
Okay, great. So, can you tell us about your worst entrepreneurial moment, and if you were able to turn it around, how did you turn it around? Or if you are not able to turn it around, what was the lesson you learned from it?
Yeah, that was just 3 or 4 years ago. I had started this retail chain selling men's skincare, cosmetics, personal care products, and it started with one shop in Bangalore, and that shop started doing well. And I guess I said, if it's doing well, let's open a second one, and we did a second one, and even the second one did well. And then we got too greedy and too ambitious, and quickly went and opened 5 or 6 more shops. And all our calculations were done on the dollar being 45 to the rupee. What hit us is, very, very quickly the rupee sank to 57, and we sank with it. So that sort of, and there was no going back. I mean, we just had to shut it down because the business was not viable anymore at 57. So one of the lessons, again, coming back to the book that I referred to, 0 to 1, is don't grow too fast.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Now let's retouch on MyVote. So what is the business or revenue model of MyVote.Today, and what is the future you envision for your company?
There are several revenue models in MyVote today, and I'm not sure whether it's easy to sort of explain on the podcast, but just to give one example is that hopefully by this IPL itself, by this April, we will have live voting on cricket matches, and the revenue will come because the sponsors will want that to be telecast along with the match itself. So imagine now when you're watching a match, let's say it's RCB versus Delhi Daredevils, and you're an RCB fan, and you're cheering for RCB, but live voting also shows you what other people around the country or around the world who are watching the IPL match are thinking. So it could be on which team is going to win, it could be on how many runs ABD is going to make, or how many wickets Nishant is going to take, or whatever it is, right? So that's just one example. So although the main platform is for causing change and reclaiming democracy, at the same time we are human beings, and all work no play makes you a sick boy. So there's a lot of gamification in our app. We're giving citizens the chance to actually take on positions which probably otherwise they can never get. So through our app, you could actually become the honorary mayor of Hyderabad. And again, it's too difficult to explain, in a small interview. But we have several different streams of revenue.
Okay, and the future? What do you want?
So the future, of course, although being an Indian, and people will comment on this saying that, but is there a conflict? But I don't think in my mind there's any conflict. We are already supposed to be a democracy. So if we can sort of bring about one big change nationally and several small changes locally. So the one big change that we are aiming for is that break down all walls, all doors, all rooms, all cabins in government offices, right? Make them all like a Japanese company like a Toyota or a Maruti has no cabins. Whether you're a director, a manager, a general manager, a VP, or whatever clerk, everybody sits out in an open hall, and there are cameras, right? So, I mean, corruption always happens behind closed doors. Corruption cannot happen in an open hall. So I remember landing in Bombay airport about 7 years ago. I had a lot of luggage. We were traveling as a family. So, and we were very tired because we had taken this almost non-stop flight all the way from Miami. And so we had some 4-5 suitcases. We had gone for a long vacation, and we hired a porter, and we told the porter that, I had to go, I had no rupees in my pocket. So I had to change dollars to rupees. So I had to stand in the line to change the currency. I told the porter to watch the luggage because the children had fallen asleep, and my wife was like, obviously they had fallen asleep on her lap. So when I came back, the porter was nowhere to be seen, and I got very upset. And I told this porter, I said, what is it? I paid you the money to watch my luggage. So he says, Saab, abhi to camera lag gaya sab na, kuch chori nahi hoga. So I said, oh wow. So I said, Bombay airport mein chori band ho gaya? He said, yes, after the cameras are put, people are getting caught, right? So, the one big thing, if we can accomplish it in the next 5 to 6 years, is, get these IAS officers and IPS officers or whoever they are out of their closed rooms, ministers, secretaries, everybody. Let them work in an open hall. They're supposed to be working for us. Let's get them to work for us.
Okay, brilliant. So, good luck with that. So, basically, you want to create few big changes, many small changes in the way the country works. So that's really good. And
yeah, so more matters than concerns that matter.
Okay, great. Hats off to you for that. I think it's a really noble cause that you're trying to achieve. Now, you already mentioned this a few times, 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. But apart from that, are there any other books or resources that you can recommend for our budding entrepreneurs?
Well, everybody also by default reads the Lean Startup by Eric Rice, but my personal favorite is actually the two books. One is Behind the Arches, and that's the story of how McDonald's became McDonald's. And I think everybody today gets carried away because of tech, but we all know McDonald's is the largest non-governmental owner of property in the world, and they serve the maximum number of meals every day. And you should read that story.
Okay, excellent. We'll link those books on the show notes. Now, MyVote is about 6 months old, right? But you mentioned you launched in Jan.
MyVote as a concept is just 4 months old, and yes, we launched on Republic Day on 26th of January.
Okay, so MyVote is only 4 months old, but have you learned any major lessons in this short period? Would you do anything different if you were to start this, let's say, today?
Yes, we have learned some lessons. So, some lessons that we've learned is don't do a gender-specific poll. People don't like it. So, we did a poll recently on women's dressing habits, and it wasn't a very popular poll. Again, this may be too early. Maybe we may relearn something else. The other thing we learned is India sleeps on a Saturday because we've been seeing this over the last 5 weeks. We get the lowest votes on a Saturday. So God only knows what happens on a Saturday.
Okay. Excellent.
I wish we could cut Saturday out of the week. I mean, as far as our business is concerned.
Okay. Excellent. Now, there's just one other question. So before that, how can our listeners get in touch with you? Are you active on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter? Do you have a blog? What's the best way? Apart from obviously downloading your app and, participating in that.
Yeah. So, I am on LinkedIn, and I guess LinkedIn would be the best way.
Okay, excellent. So I just have one final question, but before we move on to that, I just want to take the time to acknowledge and thank you for sharing your knowledge to myself and our listeners. I'm also very grateful to the value you're adding into the world by means of your startup, and obviously you're trying to do a lot of changes and get India back to the way it's supposed to be, back to the democracy that it's supposed to be. So really thank you for that. So with that, we'll move on to the final question. So if there is one Gyan that you could give our would-be founders, what would that be?
Be brave.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much, Amit, for your time, and it was a real pleasure chatting with you, and wish you continued success in your venture.
Thanks.
There you have it, folks. Another startup and its founder. I hope you got inspired. Do